Hey, this is Michelle, and you're listening to Words with Michelle, the podcast, a show where I sit down and have conversations with influencers on a range of topics, anything from natural hair, employment, discrimination, food, relationships, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. If you want to send me an email, hit me up at michelle@wordsmichelle.com. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Words with Michelle, the podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with Devo Brown, DJ, radio personality, and TV host. Just like my episode with Melanie Ng, I wanted to thank Devo for interviewing me on Breakfast Television way back in February. You can watch a clip of that episode. Just visit the Breakfast Television website. Now back to the most chill guy ever, Devo Brown. It's not that he's just a chill guy. He's also very sensitive, calming, and thoughtful. In the interview, we covered a lot. He spoke about his early dream of becoming a teacher, to becoming a DJ, and working at the first black radio station, Flow 93.5, back in the day. He recalls historic moments at the station when certain artists you may have heard of, like Drake and The Weeknd, were just starting out. That's pretty cool, eh? He also brought me up to speed on his super hectic schedule in media, and we chat about how radio has changed over the years. I can go on, but let's start the interview. But before I begin, I want to remind you to subscribe and follow my podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as any other app that you use to listen to your podcasts. So now, to start the interview, I asked Devo to introduce himself. Thanks for being on the show, Devo. But I want to start off. I will say thank you to the guests. So thank you for sitting with me today. I'm honored and excited and happy and everything. So just tell the audience just a brief, just give them a brief bio about who Devo Brown is.
Wow. Okay. Thank you, by the way, for having me. I appreciate, you taking the time to listen to anything that I'm going to spew out because I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. That's just how I am too. Anyone that's been around what I've done for years, it's just what you see is what you get. I am Devo Brown. Hello. I work on Breakfast Television currently. I'm one of the hosts on that show. I also work a little bit on Kiss 92.5 and Kiss radio stations across the country with DJ Climax. We have a show called Set It Off. So I still get to do some of that love with radio and music and all that once a week on Saturday nights. Other than that, I'm just a regular dude that has a fun job.
Like, I don't know if you're a regular dude. I mean, I guess you're saying that because because you're humble, and I sense that, I feel that. But you do everything. Like, I don't know how you manage your time. Like, you really are like go go go. How do you manage your life? That's a big question.
Yeah, it is because if you, depending on who you ask, they'll be like, "Oh, he's really, really good at managing time." And then if you ask somebody else, they'll be like, "He is terrible at managing time," because those are the people that I don't spend enough time with, and it is because I like to do a lot. I enjoy what I do, whether it's the show, the TV show, or the radio show, or hosting something live, or going to an event to just network with people and say hello to people, or volunteer, or work with kids, or whatever it might be. Special Olympics Canada, I do stuff with motion ball. Um, I like to stay busy. I need to stay busy. I think, if I don't, I don't feel satisfied or fulfilled in that way. So time management is not one of my biggest strengths, but I manage to manage the time, if that makes sense. You know what
Wow.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like time management, I'm not strong at, but I manage time in order to get all these things in and be able to um, really, uh, I guess, accept and be involved in all these opportunities, which are a blessing.
Yeah, like I mean, I was just looking at your list, and of the things you've done, and it's like really like it's major, it's impactful. Like you do it all. Like honestly, I don't know how you're on TV. Like how are you on TV in the morning? Like how do you get up to do it? Like you get no sleep. What is your average? Okay, I know this is crazy, but how long do you sleep for?
Probably 3 hours a night.
Oh,
Yeah, and then I try and catch a little bit during the day as well, but I've never been a great sleeper. And, my parents tell me stories from when I was a kid and they'd put me to bed and I'd get up and then they'd fight with it. And to the point where they're like, okay, we're done fighting him over this stuff. We're just going to let it be. So I'd fall asleep on the living room floor while they're watching the news, and then they would take me to bed. It is that kind of vibe. And even in high school, things like that, my mind is always active because I am doing so many things in that way. And, I've always said this and people would take it wrong right away. They take it the wrong way until I explain. But I said, if I've met you, you're going to be in my dream later. Like this will be in my dreams
Oh my God.
tonight.
That's
And people are
awesome.
like, bro, that's creepy. And I'm like, no, it's not creepy. It's because my dreams continue what I've been doing throughout the day and throughout my life. So it's all kind of a continuation. Then it gets weird. Then you start falling asleep and then it's all over the place. But yeah, if I've met you, there's a good chance you've been in my dream.
Oh my God. And it's so funny you say this because the thing is, my dream is a continuation of my days. So I've never heard anyone say that before. But yeah, like things that happened in the day actually play out on my dreams.
Hmm.
So that's kind of cool. Yeah. Interesting. Actually, there's
Yeah,
something else that I noticed that we have in common. You have a degree in sociology.
I do.
That's quite interesting because that's I have a BA in sociology.
Oh,
What made you choose that? Because I'll let you know what mine was. Why did you choose sociology?
so I wasn't sure if I was going to get into university at first. I applied to a couple universities, and I was kind of a late acceptance at McMaster. And there was a couple programs I could look at, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll do sociology." And it interested me. I was interested in it. Um, I was working with kids. I worked with kids a lot growing up. I didn't do anything for this. I liked music. I liked, being creative and goofy and whatever, but I didn't have a focus when I was a kid that this is something that I would do, or, I want to be on radio, or I want to be on TV, or I want to be, like every kid that was goofy, I'd be like, oh, I want to be an actor. Maybe that was the closest thing that I thought to any kind of similarity to what I do now. But I work with kids all the time. So I said, I want to be a teacher. So what's my path to becoming a teacher? And it was, this BA in sociology and kind of focusing in that area. It was general, arts or sciences, whatever the kind of branch or umbrella it was under at the time. And so that's what it was for me, is learning more about that. And then I liked it because you got to, and because you experienced it, you could get specific kind of courses and programs to really get you, you know, uh, a little more knowledge in something that you were interested in. One of my final papers was studying the effects of hip hop music on general society. And I got to research certain things and look at different things. And I was like, man, this is really cool that I can, you know, combine a few passions and make that part of what I was schooling and going to school for. So, yeah, that's what it was for me. I mean, the initial goal was to be a teacher, and then everything changed as I was going through it all.
What's changed then? Because obviously you had interest in music. The fact
Hmm.
that you put two and two together, like you put the paper sociology and music. So obviously there was a love of music. So how did you know you were going to get into like radio? Like was that
Yeah, it was. So when I went to university, I just started. It was the time of people downloading music.
Mhm.
Don't get mad at me, record companies and
Oh,
and
we all did
artists
it.
and
Don't worry about
labels,
it.
right? Yeah, so I was up on it quick though. I was up on it quick. So, in my dorm, I was the one who had new music first, and I was pumping stuff up in my room, and people would walk by me like, "Oh, what's that?" And because of that, I started DJing at the local bars on campus and in the Hamilton area. And that became a big passion for me because I saw how happy I made people. I saw my peers that were stressing over exams or upset about because, their boyfriend broke up with them and they're crying in the club or whatever. But I'd play a song or I'd jump on the mic and they'd all laugh and smile and they'd hug and be tears of happiness or, whatever it might be. And I was like, man, that's a cool feeling. Like I helped create that, and those people will remember that either for the rest of this week. If they're super drunk, then they never remember it again, or for the rest of their lives. And that's the impact that I was able to have by just doing something that I thought was pretty simple, but you didn't realize how much it really meant to people at times. So that's where I was like, I want that feeling more. That to me was the coolest vibe and the coolest feeling that I had. And so I wanted to pursue that. So yeah, I kept on DJing and the other thing was, especially coming from a South Asian family, you have to get your degree. You can't drop out of school. So I also wanted to prove myself that I could complete a task, whether I wanted to or not, I wanted to complete it, but I also wanted to learn. So that's why sociology was so great too, because it was, again, specific and I could choose some courses that I had some interest in that made me want to go to class, made me want to learn about these different things. And it helped me because you think about what sociology is, a study of groups in society. That's
Yeah.
all I do all day, every day now, right? So I didn't, without knowing that's what I was doing it, which was super cool. And so I started taking just night classes because I couldn't be getting up early to try and go to class because I was DJing 3, 4 times a week. And,
Wow.
sometimes I'd leave, I called it halftime, but I'd leave at the half break for a night class would be like 3 hours long because there'd already be lineups at the clubs that I was doing, because we had drink deals and then they knew the music was going to be a certain way. So we became pretty popular out there. And so, yeah, I really chased that feeling of making people smile.
What was your DJ name?
Just Devo Brown. That's what I
Devo
started
Brown?
with.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, man, it's always been. It's so funny. Like I remember the first flyer that I got to do. I was in this like just bad area of Hamilton where I got a gig. I was gonna get paid like $80 for the night. It was so cool, man. And the place was called CD Sports Bar, like the letters C and D. And I'm like, no, it's a CD Sports Bar. Like it for real. It was a double entendre in that sense. I remember I borrowed my buddy's pickup truck to drive down there, and a couple other guys came with me. And the first night, it was a rough spot. And there was new owners, and they're like, we want to change the music, and they're used to rock music and all that, but you're gonna play hip hop and top 40 and reggae and all that stuff. And I was like, okay, are you sure? When I walked in, I was like, are you sure about this? Because this might be a problem. And I remember the first night, a beer bottle was thrown at me in the DJ booth because they did not want to hear that. And it was one of those where I'm like, oh, smash behind me on the wall. And I was like, it's going to be one of these nights, huh? But I went back every Saturday and did it and stuck with it. And we changed the attitude of people. We changed the vibe of the place. And it turned out to be a decent night for the summer that I worked there. It was a fun Saturday night. So, it was it was interesting. It was very different than doing the on-campus stuff with all the university students. I was like, oh, I've just left my bubble world and now I'm in the real
Mm.
part of town, and this is what real life is going to be. You're not going to make everyone happy, but you're going to try your best. And I was like, okay, this is far from making people smile, but what can we do? How are we going to win them over? And that's why I would say now you can put me in any room and I'm comfortable and I'm confident because of the things I've had to go through in my career in different rooms with different people, that yeah, I feel good in any room. I'll be like, yeah, cool, man. I might be the outcast or the outlier in this room, but they're all gonna be okay by the end of this.
Nice. So then how did you make the leap into flow? Was that your first foray into radio or was there somewhere before?
There's a few places before. So as I was mentioning, it was Hamilton's kind of started. So I was working, we did the sociology degree, we get the degree. I'm working DJing different bars and clubs. I'm working at the YMCA, coaching basketball, working with big brothers and kind of mentoring a kid in Hamilton. So I'm doing all this while finishing up my university degree. And then as I was coming towards the end of it, I didn't get accepted to teachers college. And I'm like, okay, here's reality. What do we do? DJing wasn't glamorous at the time. There's a few, DJs that were around the same time that were doing stuff that became like there was Baby Blue Sound Crew starting from scratch was starting out at the same time. DJ Climax, they were all doing stuff, but I didn't know anything about those guys because I wasn't like skilled in that way. I played music that I wanted to hear and then I'd hype on the crowd. And that's what made my parties decent because I was like, if I was partying, what would I want to hear? And I do that. And people were like, yeah, that's what we want to hear too. So it just worked out. But I wasn't what those guys were in their skill level. So I was like, I don't know if DJing's a career or what this is. And so I started working with Pepsi and I was out stocking shelves during the days and then I DJ at night. Get up the next morning, go stock shelves, 8 hours, 9 hours, driving all over the GTA doing that, go DJ again at night. And so from there, one of the bars that I had been working at, they were going to do some advertising on radio. So the manager became a buddy of mine. He said, let's let's go to this meeting at the radio station. I want you to come with me. You always have great ideas. You helped us build this big night. And so I went with him and I'd met the people there and turned out, he knew someone there that he went to high school with. And that person said, hey, look, we're looking for people on our street team. We need just somebody to go hand out stickers and this and that when we're doing events, like interns. And I was like, man, I don't know if I can do interns. I need to pay these like bills, right? And I'm already working a ton of hours. But I was like, this is something I want to do. I think radio would be really cool. And so I said yes to it. So on top of the other 80 hours I was working, I started doing events with these guys. And two events in, they're like, okay, we'll pay you because you're good. We like you. And it started from there. So that was Energy Radio in Hamilton, which
Energy
was kind of like
108?
energy.
Was it called Energy?
Yeah,
Oh
man.
my
Yeah,
God.
Energy
I
108. So that's
remember
where I
it.
met. So I
Wow.
met Mastermind and Axel, and Big D was one of my mentors. Darren Laidman is one of my guys, and taught me a lot. And Wayne Williams was there, who became my boss at Flow.
Mm.
They were all on air guys at the time, and I was just like this kid doing the street team stuff. And then Energy had different places, so I went from Hamilton to Barrie to work at their station, and that was an adventure for sure. And from there to the Oshawa station, and then that had kind of flipped into some other stuff. And then I was working in Coburg, Peterborough area at a radio station. They launched a brand new station, and I started the evening show for them, and became the highest rated show out there in that market, just off of zero listeners, which was wild.
Wow.
Um, and then there was, conversations going on at Flow and things like that. I heard about it. So I reached out to Wayne and talked to him. And yeah, they eventually hired me as like a part-timer kind of person. And that quickly, within, I'd say 6 months, I was doing the drive home show. Because Wayne was going to go into the programming role, and they kind of groomed me into being that person. And yeah, and we did, almost 6 years, I think, at Flow, which was pretty wild.
How was it? Like, how was it? I mean, that's a huge part, a huge chunk of our history. Like, I remember when it came out, and it was huge because we felt seen. I felt seen. I mean, I'm saying,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, me, I felt like so like this is it. This is exactly what I've ever wanted. How did it feel like being in that environment?
It was super cool because by the time I got there, I mean, I think I got there a year and a half after it launched,
Mhm.
maybe 2 years after it launched. I think it launched 2001. I think my memory's not the
It
best
could
on
be.
that
That sounds
part.
about right. 2001. I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah, and I
2001.
think I got there about 2004. So, um, yeah, I remember it being that it was different, right? And we're like, yo, this is the music we want. Like, this is what I like. This is something. These people are cool that are working on the show, and then the events that they're doing. It's all like it's a really nice vibe. So a lot of changes has started to happen when I got there. As you mentioned, it's a black-owned radio station. Um, but they had also had shareholders that they needed to please. And then there was the advertising. So there was a lot of things that were being tweaked when I got there. And I know there was, I don't I don't want to say backlash, but there was some hesitancy about hiring me. Um,
Mm.
because I'm not black. So they're like, okay, well, what do we well, we're we're a black owned radio station, and our you know what our mandate was this and is this, but now it's adjusting a little bit. So where does this fall into it? So there was an adjustment period of who they had been hiring and things like that, and some of the changes that had happened by the time I got there. So there was a little hesitancy. And to me, flow is something that will never be the pure prime of flow. And I'm not gonna throw out names of who all was working because I'll forget somebody and that'd be disrespectful.
Yeah.
But that will never be replicated again, unfortunately, man. Like what was happening there was something special, and what we were doing for the city was something beautiful. Um, and it was what you said, feeling seen. You know, we walked around with our chest puffed out a little bit because we're like, yo, this is it. We're disrupting. People use that term a lot now in the creator world, like disruptors and all that. We were disruptors back then. We were what regular top 40 radio or rock radio or adult contemporary radio was doing in this country. We were not that. And we weren't scared to be what we were, and it was nice. And people were seeing it. And finally, people in positions of power that had the spending dollars, that were in management roles and CEO roles and everything, were like, yeah, I want to take my company's money and take it there and spend it on this brand, as opposed to a brand that I don't feel seen with. So it was really cool, man. It was such a special time. And music, I mean, you talk to somebody and they're going to say, yo, 90s and 2000s hip hop was the best hip hop. And that was the best musical generation. So that also helped, right? Because we had some great artists coming out, some great music coming out at the time. So we got to play a lot of incredible records. We got to break a lot of artists, Canadian artists, and that, if you think about, I just hung out recently with Rochester and Juice and Cardi and Socrates and all that. Not saying we broke them in that sense, but those guys got a lot of radio airplay, and it definitely helped their careers in that sense. Guys like Aubrey and Abel, so Drake and The Weeknd, their first radio airplay ever was on Flow, and I remember being there to do that for a guy like Drake, and helping get his songs on the radio with a few other people, and obviously his skill set and talent
Mhm.
goes a long way too. But we were there for those moments, and that's why I say it won't be replicated, because I mean that's history. Like there was a lot of history made there. And it's funny because as I'm talking now, I'm just thinking about all the different shows and different people that I got to work with, and yeah, some talented and fun people.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I mean, now we're talking, it's really taking me back as well, too, because I can remember time and place. And I just remember the Flow logo and how it was.
Yeah.
Remember, I just remember like the media, like the advertising, like all over the place, and just feeling so good about it. Just feeling like, oh my God, this is what I wanted all my life, because people at that time they were listening to college radio, right? To listen to the hip hop, whatever. And just having this one station that can play everything, like, from soul to reggae to hip hop to R&B, it was just like, my God, thank you, one stop shop. It was really
Oh,
good for the city.
it's
It
so
was,
true. Like, you say it's so good reggae. Like, I think about doing a live to air with me, Specs, and Dr. J, and we would be in the same club, and there'd be other DJs doing the hip hop aspect of it, but just the three of us from the station that would be there. And Jay would be like, "Yo, jump on my set and MC for me." I'm like, "Jay, I'm not a soca MC, man." He goes, "You are one tonight. Let's go."
oh my
And
God.
and our friendships were formed in that way, right? And we all went through crazy fun times like that, and different experiences. So it's yeah, like I have a lot of respect for so many people that work there. And look, there are going to be people that didn't like certain things with the radio station. I'm not going to ignore that, like with the way things might have been run or whatever it is. That happens with any business, right? But I think overall, if you look at what Flow did for this city and for this country, is it was special, man. And I'm so glad to have been a part of it.
Yeah, it's an institution, to be quite honest. I mean, like it just captured like a huge, like pre-social media, like, you know what I mean? Like there was social media,
Yeah.
but it's not really social media. It's not like what it is today. Totally different time. It's almost, and I hate using the word innocent. It's not really innocent, but it's just kind of untouched. It's just like a piece of history that, like played a part in everyone's careers, and just feeling satisfied. It was satisfying. And for lack of a better word, I don't even know what to say, but it's just like you just felt good knowing it was there. Just knowing it's there, like, yes, I'm so happy that that's a part of my life, you know?
It makes me feel good to hear the reaction that, and how it made you feel, which
Hmm.
is it's super cool to know. That's again, it's why I got into it. That's the feeling. I took that feeling from the club into a radio station, and then doing that on a grander level. And that's why I'm like, it's a privilege to do that. We got to do that and live that, and knowing that that was the effect it has. It's awesome.
How has radio changed today then? How's it? I mean, it's completely different now from back in the day. Like that's 20 years ago. So even if it was 2004, like that legit is 21 years ago. Even saying that, I feel like I'm 100 years old now. Because now it's like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, because I remember it.
Yeah.
But it's 21 years ago.
Yeah, I guess it was. Yeah, 2004,
Can you?
2005 when
I
I
know we
started
don't
there.
think
It's
about
almost
it,
20
but
years.
so I mean, like, so I guess everything evolves. So the thing is, radio would have to evolve because the times have changed, right?
Hmm.
When we listen to music has changed.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing for radio, right? I think the special thing about radio that some people understand, and I think that's why they're drawn to it, and some people don't really pay attention to, but are still drawn to it for this reason, is that it's live and local. And that's the biggest thing, is that there's certain parts of this country and that won't have a local television station or anything like that, but they'll have a local radio station. And that local radio station really is telling you the heartbeat of that place. You can't get that any other way except for live and it being local. Now there's so many, networks and corporations and companies, and I work for one where sometimes, financially it's not sustainable to do that. It's very expensive to run a radio station, and unless the community supports it, whether it's a big city like Toronto or a smaller community in the middle of BC, they need to support it with advertising in order for all of that to work. So if you don't have that support, then yeah, then you end up getting, you know, content that's from somewhere else that isn't local anymore. And I think that's a shame. I think, taking away, like they talk about funding. I got the Mr. Dress Up shirt right now. So I keep seeing the CBC logo on here. My Rogers bosses will get mad.
Oh my God.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I'm kidding.
No, but things like talking about taking away some of that public funding for radio, some of the government people are talking about that. And I'm like, there are communities that rely on that. That's how they're getting their news. That's how they're getting their information in those communities. We don't always think about the communities outside of the major metropolitan places like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, you know, Calgary, Edmonton, Halifax. It's outside of that. There's so much country in this country. It's more country than there is city, right? And how do we make sure that those people are still getting informed and still getting content and being entertained? And that's through radio, whether it's through corporate and private companies or public companies. So I think radio is so important still. It's not so much about playing new music and breaking artists, unfortunately, for new artists, but that's not where they're looking to go get seen and heard. It's TikTok, it's Instagram, it's Spotify, it's Apple Music. Like that's where you're going if you're an artist and you want to get seen and heard. You're not worrying about jumping on your local radio station. Now, maybe if you're in a small community, that's cool. It's just a cool thing. It is, and I've been with some artists and new artists when they heard their song for the first time on radio. It's a cool feeling because you're just like driving in your car and you switch things, or you're listening to a mix show and the DJ puts it on and you're like, what? That's mine. Like that's a cool feeling. So I'd love for people to experience that still, but we understand music's consumed differently. I think it's about the personality, it's about the content and being entertained by somebody in your neighborhood.
Mhm. Nice. So, okay, so we've spoken a bit about your radio days and continue, but so you made the leap into media, like on the camera. How did that happen?
So I was working at Kiss 92.5 at the time, and there was Taylor Kay, she was going on a mat leave, and she was doing kind of this weekend segment. It was like we were both working weekends in different shifts, and she was doing something with City News that was kind of like what events are happening in the city and things like that. And while she was going on her mat leave, they're like, well, we still have this block that we want to fill with some sort of content. Like, do you think you could do it? And so I started doing similar to what she was doing. And I was like, this doesn't feel natural for me. It was good for what she was doing and it was a fit for her. But for me, it wasn't a fit. And I was given the freedom. There's a woman named Irina that was working there at the time. She was a producer for City News on Sundays. And she's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I'm a radio station. We do music. Why don't I do like top songs and new music or something like that, like my picks? And then that's what it became, Devo's top three and Devo's new music pick for the week. So new music drops on Fridays. So I would pick a song on Fridays that I liked and I would add that to it. If a video dropped, cool. If not, we would just talk with the artist and play other things. And then I would pick top three songs. And, the charts didn't change a ton when it came to the top, 5 to 10 songs, but I would rotate it through, or I'd pick a song that I'm like, no, this is going to be my number three. And it's not even on the chart yet, a song that I'd like, or I wanted people to get familiar with, or an artist that I thought, would have a good future, or, want to break them and give them some love. And so that's how it was. It started with that, just doing City News. I would go in and volunteered my time. They would come to my studio, or I would go to them and made sure it got done every weekend. And from there, some conversations were had and changes were made on our end in our radio station and what my future could be. And I said, yeah, I'd like to do TV. I'd like to try it out. And some people were like, yeah, we want him on TV more. We like him. And so it just started that way. It was, doing a little bit of entertainment stuff on breakfast television here and there. It was more of a City News thing. And then they were taking that and putting it on breakfast television. This is when we had different shows across the country. So I worked with the team and we put together an entertainment package, and then that would get shipped out across the country, but it wasn't a full-time BT role. And then eventually some changes were made, and I was asked to come on to be doing part time, like just not just entertainment, but as a part time kind of host and someone that would contribute in different ways on the show. So, and it's kind of evolved over the years and different things. I've done covered sports, I've done lifestyle, I've done music, I do all the entertainment and movies and shows and all that. But it's been, yeah, it's been a fun ride.
You're like a great interviewer. I have to admit, like I see all your interviews. Like, how do you prep for like how do you ever get in okay, I know this is a stupid question, but like do you get nervous? And if you do, how do you overcome that nervousness? Like interviewing people that you're like, because not the, it could be a little intimidating when you interview someone that you're like, oh my God, I'm actually like a huge fan of this person. How do you juggle those feelings?
I think the first time I ever got starstruck was meeting Jay-Z at Flow. It was at
Mm.
Caravana Weekend one. Um, Everybody knows it was Jay-Z, Kanye, Rihanna, Tierra Marie. That was the big one, right? Wayne Williams was doing the interview, and we got to meet all of them when they came in. I was there that day, and I went to say hi to Jay. He was like looking at everybody. He was kind of making comments, and based on what you were wearing, so he looked at me. He's like, "Oh, I can't figure this one out because I had no logos, right?" Everyone else had logo. He would like say something, and I was like, he said hi, so I went to shake his hand, and I went to say hi, nice to meet you, and I went hi, and then I
Oh.
laughed, and he looked at me and he's like, and then I laughed, and I was like, wow, that's never happened. I'm like, I'm Devo, nice to meet you. And he's like, okay, and then he goes about his business doing whatever, and I got a chance to interview him years later for the Blueprint 3 album. And I remember, there was a lot of preparation behind it and nervousness from our bosses. Like, this is Jay and this is special. You know, we're coming in on a Saturday, we're closed set, all this stuff. And we were supposed to have 5 minutes together. And through the interview, I could see his people kind of checking in. And he was like, because they're like, you want to wrap it up? And he's like, no. And we did almost, I think, 20-ish
Mm.
of just conversation. And that to me really showed what preparation can do and research. And when you have done that and you feel like you really know the person you're talking to, or at least enough about their subject matter that they want to talk about, that you feel very comfortable, then you become confident. And that's what it was for me, that I knew no matter what, I knew no matter what, I'd have a great conversation with them because just human to human, I felt comfortable with that. But I knew the work was done, the research was done, the preparation was done. And because of that, I was like, man, I got this. You can ask me anything. I'll tell you inside out about this stuff. And that's what it was. And it's also listening. He
Mm.
had said something to me within the first 45 seconds of our conversation when we started the interview. And I did a recall of that about a minute and a half later, where he had said something. And I said, well, blah, blah, blah. And I quoted him. And then he started talking again. He goes, oh, he goes, you're sharp. I like that. And he did his little Jay-Z laugh. And I was like, oh. And right then I knew it. I had him because all of a sudden the way he looked at me was so different. He goes, this guy is actually listening to me. He's not question, answer. He's not sitting down like ready to go. He's listening to me and having a conversation with me. And then that's what it became. He said things he wasn't supposed to in the interview. He talked about like Beanie Siegel and that whole beef and all that stuff. And I wasn't allowed to ask any questions about any of that stuff, but he went to it and he said all that. And when we were done, got up and gave me a big hug. And he goes, I needed that. Thank you. And I was like, no, sir, because he's way taller. And I'm like, no, man, thank you. I'm like, thanks a lot, man. And and I think that's when, for me, I realized what preparation and listening can really do in everyday conversation, but especially in interviews. And then, I've always treated interviews as a conversation, not an interview. An interview sounds intimidating. An interview is something that you're going to do when you're looking for a new job, or I'm looking for a new job. That's an interview. To me, this is a chat. This is a convo. We get to know each other, and that's kind of what you do in interviews. I know they're called that, but that's I my vision of them is a conversation more than anything else.
I wanted to ask, how have interviews changed? through the pandemic, like post pandemic? Because I remember your interviews during the pandemic. I totally remember them. Has anything really changed since then besides the distance?
I think that, I mean, we can all do this, right? Which is nice, and people feel more comfortable. That was the other thing. Like during the pandemic, if you remember, there people were open, because they weren't doing that stuff as much. But they're also doing it here. Like you see my couch behind me in the wall, and,
Yeah.
and then the painting. I'm in the comfort of my own home, You got your shoes off, you're not wearing, for all these celebs, they're not wearing clothes that are uncomfortable or shoes that are uncomfortable or have five people fussing over them. They were doing it on their own. So you got this relaxed person, you got realness from them because everyone was literally in the same situation, not knowing what was going on in the world. So that was a very unique time in that. Now, because of social media and this desire to have these gotcha moments, which happened before, but I think it's just to a different level now that you see artists and celebrities are, and I speak about that because that's who I'm exposed to a little more.
Mhm.
They're a little more guarded, even if they're comfortable with you, they're a little more guarded because they're worried about saying the wrong thing. And cancel culture is quick and fast, and we all know that. And so, that openness or that realness, it doesn't happen as much. It depends on who it is and how their persona is kind of in the public eye. If there's someone who's known as not really giving a bleep about what they do or say, then you're going to get that. But a lot of people are very guarded because they don't want to get canceled. I mean, that's the thing. That's what I'll say about that. And a lot of it is, this is what I'm here to promote, and that's that. And I don't want you in my business too much. So it is it's interesting because I have a good relationship with a lot of people, and not that they're guarded with me in that sense, but I know where I got to draw the line with them. Like I'm not going to talk about, us hanging out and having a couple of drinks or whatever like that in the public thing where they might not even care, but I'm not going to put that in that situation. I don't want to put them in that. And so, yeah, I find just people are a little more guarded than they used to be.
See, but that's considerate though, the fact that you don't talk about personal, because I mean, no one needs to know that because you do have a personal life, right? Like you
Hmm.
need to know everything. So I think it's just being like it's not just common sense. It's just like, like you said, you draw the line, right? You don't need to put all that because it's not personal. Because business is
Hmm.
personal, right? Mind you, you do like those moments when people slip. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh, 100%. Like you want, and they know that too, right? They know they want to be real about stuff. They need to be relatable and everything. So they'll talk about it. Like, you know, it's there's a fine line. I think there's a place and time for it all. Like these are the forums where I think, you see celebrities and people of influence doing more podcasts and things like that. I always joke around. I'm like, this is when you're gonna get yourself in trouble, man, because you have all the time to speak and you can say anything, right? Because there's no, when people are doing their podcasting, it's a long form. So you just spew out whatever you want to spew out, and no one's really like over your shoulder being like, dude, don't, why are you saying that? You know what I mean? There's no publicist to stop them. So that's where you're seeing the celebs get in trouble when they're doing their own podcasts and talking about things that they used to do back in the day or people they used to work with. And it's like, whoa, slow down. You're gonna
I
get,
love that stuff. Okay, because I'm an
yeah.
audience. So for me, because I do,
Of course. That's what we want to know, right? That's what people want to know. It's true.
well, you do want the tea. You can't help it. I mean, like that's, but yeah, you do because I mean, I listen to a couple of podcasts from celebs, and I love it because it's just because it's like a deep dive in what happened, maybe 10 years ago. It kind of opens your eyes, like, oh my God, that happened.
Hmm.
But it doesn't change the way I feel about them because I realize we're all human, right? And 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever years ago, we're so different. We're such an evolution. We're always changing. So I don't really hold anything against anyone because I feel like, you know, I don't judge people because I'm like, I don't want anyone judging me. Like my life is not perfect. So when I hear stuff that's kind of messy, I'm like, yeah, you're real. I just see it as being real, and that's who you were
Yeah.
at that moment. You know what I mean?
No, I appreciate that. I respect that a lot. Yeah. No, that's the truth. You're right. Everybody changes and everyone goes through a lot of things. Lord knows I made my mistakes.
Like, if you
We
didn't, then
all
were you
do.
really living? Like, come on. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes you. For me, I do it like I think about situations. I also do it with my writing too. Like I look back, I'm like, that sucks. Like I wrote that. That's not really good, but that's who I was at that moment. I wasn't that good, right? I was okay, right? So I mean, like, it's life. It's life. I want to talk about breakfast television.
Like 6-ish years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, like it was like full time, I guess, just before the pandemic. Yeah,
Oh, I remember,
yeah.
yeah, because I was watching it all through the pandemic. I mean, before the
Hmm.
I was watching it. Okay, I was studying it. I'm not gonna lie. I was complete because I'm like, one day I'll be on it. And so I was watching you guys, and yeah, this is just a full circle moment. Look,
I mean, I love what I do. I really do. I laugh about the early mornings though, because I'm like, uh, I'm people are like, you're a morning person. I'm like, no, I'm a nighttime person. I'm a late night guy that just plays a morning person on TV.
mm,
No, but I do love doing it. Honestly, like I said at the very beginning when we got on this call with you, it's a privilege, man. It really is to be able to do what we do. I don't take it for granted. I really understand, you know, how special and cool it is to do what we do and get to be there for people every single morning. It's truly an honor to do that. I love it. Um, I could see doing stuff like this kind of form of conversation because I do like getting to know people and getting their stories and hearing stories. And that to me is just natural. But yeah, I'm kind of where I'm at. The one thing I've always said is like a late night TV show or something for Canada because we had that once or twice in the past, but it hasn't really sustained, unfortunately. And I feel like we're one of the only countries that really doesn't have its own late night show, you know?
wow. But you know what? Actually, that's a good point because I think now it can happen now because everything has changed over like the past 10, 15 years. That can be a thing. That can actually happen because now there's way more attention on Canada. Toronto's huge. Like people love
Hmm.
Toronto. So we can completely have a nighttime show because we have the celebs to to be honored on that show, right? That's something that could definitely happen. Toronto After Dark, it would be really interesting.
Yay! Oh my gosh,
That would
you got the
be
right guy for it. Trust me. I've done a lot of things after dark, child. Let me tell you. Uh,
Oh, we need
no,
an
it's
after story. We need like the behind the scenes with Devo Brown. I
uh,
feel like what Devo Brown? What the hell's going on?
yeah. I just listen. Like I said, what you see is what you get, man. People, I'll be out and somebody be like, "Are you dancing on the table?" I'm like, "Yeah." Why? Because I feel like it. I don't know, and no one's mad at it. I asked for permission, but I'm gonna have fun. I'm not
Okay, I
gonna
will
hide who
say.
I am and pretend to not be somebody I am.
Okay, I'm sure you have that side, but I will say you also have a good side because I will tell you something. I was tell when I was on the show and I we were talking about you. I was talking to a friend, sorry, and a friend of mine met you before,
Uh-oh.
and
See, this is where I get nervous when people
I know
go,
I
"Hey,
didn't know.
Devo, I met you before. I met you," and I was like,
But you know
"Uh-oh."
what they had to say, Devo? Do you know what they had to
Mm,
say? Devo's a really nice guy. And that's what they said. That is that.
that's
Just
amazing.
want you to know, that's what my friend said. They're like, Devo's a really nice guy. I'm like, yeah, he seems like a really nice guy. So
Tell your
that's all
friend I'll
I'm
pay
saying.
them.
So
I'll pay them
nothing
later.
salacious, nothing bad. It was just good. It was positive vibes. It was nice. They said he was a nice dude. He was a nice guy. So
You
that's
do
good.
know your friend is also extorting me for all of these nice things. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, that's nice. That's very sweet. Tell your friend thank you. I try to be nice and I say I try to be because we all have our moments where
Yeah.
something could frustrate us or things like that. But I try to lead with kindness and I want people to be nice to each other. That's the truth. That's who I am. That's how I was raised. And yeah, I'm happy to hear that because that's if I'm like nothing hurts me more than someone being like, "Oh yeah, you weren't nice." I had somebody I remember they're like, "Oh yeah, I met you once and you were not nice," and I'm like, "What?
Oh,
What
really?
happened?" And then they explained the situation, and I was like, "Oh," but it was one of those where I'm like, I didn't see them. You know what I mean? Like I brushed them off because I didn't hear them or I didn't know. And I was like, dude, I would never. If someone like I've gotten in trouble with my work people for being late because I will stop in the middle of the streets to talk to people that want to talk. I don't brush people off. I go, so I didn't hear you. I'm sorry. I go, I really apologize. Like that's not me. I would never just be like, yeah. Someone says, "Hey, Devo," and I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to talk to you. Like that's who does that? Like, that's not me. So I was like, okay. But yeah, that hurt me. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I was such a jerk. Then I realized I was like, I wasn't a jerk. I didn't even hear them. I didn't know they were there. So yeah, I'm very happy to hear that. That's very kind of your friend.
Honestly, I can attest for this. I can say your spirit, because I mean, it's a very West Indian thing to say, your spirit takes me. That's what we say in Trinidad. Yeah, your spirit, I felt a good spirit. So yeah, I already know that you're a good, kind person. Because I felt it, like I said, I felt it with you and Melanie. So yeah, yeah, Devo's a great guy. That's all I can.
Right
Devo's,
back at you. Right back at you. It's great
thanks.
energy.
Oh, that is it. Oh, it was such a pleasure. Honestly, this was amazing. Your conversation was
Thank you.
awesome. I love it.
Thank you. Thanks. You're the best. Appreciate it.
You're nice.
Yes, I was having way too much fun, but before I let Devo go, I asked if he could share his contact information for anyone who wanted to learn more about him.
I am all over social media. You can just slide in those DMs. No, I'm kidding. But that's how it usually goes. Instagram, of course, it's Devo Brown. TikTok on there as well. That's the best way. Just vibing out on those social media platforms is always a good time.
Nice. And that's all my questions. I'm listening
Yeah.
over. Yeah, that's it. But thank you so much. This has been a pleasure. This has been all
You
right.
too. Thank you. Bye.
I'm gonna take
See
care.
ya.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message or share your thoughts on social media on my Instagram page at wordswmichelle, on TikTok at Words with Michelle, and my YouTube channel at Words with Michelle. And don't forget to subscribe and leave a message on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so more listeners can find the show. Until next time, bye.